What's up guys, Ryan here from Mud Gunner. Today we are talking 22s. So should you own a 22 long rifle gun? And yeah, let's get into it. So should you own a 22? I think yes. Now let me go over some reasons on why I think it's a good caliber and also reasons why I think it's a bad caliber. So I think where 22 is going to shine is a training gun, or let's say you do varmint hunting. I'd say it's probably good for that. I haven't done any varmint hunting with a 22, not really in the area that I live at, but it is a very fun training gun, and I know people have used it as like squirrel guns and various other varmint guns for a long time. So right now I have two 22 handguns, and I have a couple different 22 rifles, but you'll notice these are both Ruger handguns. So I have an SR22 right here, and then I have a Ruger Mark IV Lite. And these are both pretty good for different reasons. So the Ruger SR22 has been one of my training handguns, just to teach people how to shoot a handgun without burning through all my 9mm, because there's a significant price difference between 22 and other handguns on the market. So a box of 22, like a little 50 count box, can range anywhere from $3 to $10. The higher quality ammo costs a little bit more, but you can get some cheaper ammo. CCI you can sometimes find for about $5 a box, sometimes even less. So it's very cheap to shoot 22, relatively speaking, compared to other calibers, and this is a 50 count box. So again, it's very inexpensive to shoot 22. I'd say it's a very good training gun for people, especially if you're trying to do it cost effectively, because 9mm ammo costs a little bit more right now. And it also is a good training round because it's very low recoil. It's basically as close as you can get to a BB gun while still firing a real bullet. So I think 22 is great in that sense that, you know, if you're training someone that might be a little nervous with guns, or I know people teach their kids with guns. I've let my brothers shoot these when they were a lot younger, and I'd say it's a very good gun for that purpose. So yeah, I think it's a very fun training gun. Now, I'd also like to get more 22s for myself at some point. I don't shoot them super often. I do shoot my Ruger Mark IV here suppressed. You'll notice I have this crazy muzzle device on here. This is kind of like the ray gun from Call of Duty, but this is just a threaded piece of brass that goes on my muzzle. It's nothing other than looks. So I do have a 22 suppressor, and that is a lot of fun to shoot on here because it's extremely quiet. Let me show you a clip. All right, to start, we have the 5 rounds of Federal moving at 1,240 feet per second. So that's like your standard velocity 22. So pretty quiet, but now check this out, 970. Honestly, that sounds very similar, huh? So yeah, very quiet suppressed. It's, again, no recoil. It's quieter than a nail gun, or maybe about the same. I would say it's quieter than a nail gun, but I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun to shoot, and yeah, it's just easy. Now, I will say 22 is not as reliable feeding as some other calibers because it's a rimmed cartridge. So let me show you right here. These are gonna be tiny. So it's this little bullet. So it's this little bullet right here, but you'll notice it has a rimmed cartridge. I'm holding my hand up so you can kind of see, and it kind of protrudes off the sides here, where on a 9mm it does not. It lines up relatively flush. So, and it's also a rimfire round versus centerfire. So you'll notice this 9mm has the little centerpiece right there. That is your primer. So it's a firing pin that hits that to set it off, where on a 22, when it's chambered, a hammer hits it from one of the edges, and that's what ignites it. So it's a liquid primer in the bottom of that brass. Now, it's not as reliable of a source for igniting as 9mm is. I have had plenty of 22 not go off, and some guns will make it go off better than others, just depends on how hard the hammer's hitting it. But the other issue with that is when you load these up in a magazine, they can kind of get a little like off center or all crooked in there. So not all guns run them reliably, and then you have to buy some good quality ammo. This is copper plated brass. So there are straight lead bullets where it's just like the lead exposed, no copper plating. And most other calibers are all copper plated ammo. But yeah, it's just a fun blinking round, or again, varmint round. I would say if you're looking for a home defense gun, I'm not gonna say it could not be used for self-defense, but I would say I would not recommend it for self-defense, because if you're thinking about defending your life, you wanna use something that's effective. And I would say 22 is not effective for that. Again, I am not saying it's not capable. It's better than having just your hands if you needed it, but I'm saying it's not reliable, and it shouldn't be your main source of protection. Because if you're talking protection, you don't want to choose the worst possible caliber to potentially defend yourself with. So if you watch any like police shooting videos, which if you're into guns, maybe you've seen them. They pop up on my Instagram or my Facebook or YouTube or whatnot, and there's plenty of breakdown videos talking about, you know, police shootings or even just self-defense shootings. But there are plenty of videos out there showing that even 9mm 40 or 45 is not always a one hit and done kind of deal. You think from that not being able to, you know, save someone's life with multiple rounds, and then you minimize it to a little 22, you're just making your odds a lot worse. So that's just my 2 cents on it, literally 2 cents. Yeah, I would say it's not an effective home defense gun. I would really say it's just a good training gun or just a fun like range toy. And I mean toy as in like you're at the shooting range using it safely. I don't mean it's just a toy to play with at home, but I'm a gun person. We handle guns all day. So I'm desensitized to guns in general. But yeah, for me, this is just a fun range gun and it's a cheap way to train people. But I do think everyone should have a 22 because it's a lot of fun. And let's say your skill is kind of lacking with the bigger calibers. You can't necessarily expect to shoot a 45 good or a 9mm good if you can't shoot a 22 good. So having one of these as a training gun is a pretty good option. Now, I'm not saying it has to be your first gun, because I would still say having a good home defense or carry gun for your very first gun is a good option to have. Like my first handgun was a 9mm, it wasn't a 22, but over time I got into the 22s just as good training toys and fun range guns. So with my Mark IV here, I really just use it for suppressor use, and it's not my favorite gun to train people with, not because it's not effective, but it doesn't mimic a standard handgun. Because you'll notice your charging handle right here. So it's an actual kind of charging handle, kind of like a rifle, compared to a slide like most pistols. So I like the Ruger SR22 right here because you have a full-on slide. Relatively speaking, it works like a normal handgun. You got your magazine release. This does have a safety, it's hammer fired. So hammer's cocked back and it will not let you fire it without a magazine in there. And then even with a magazine in there, you can put it on safe and that decocks it, and then you can't fire it while it's unsafe. So a lot of 22s have a good amount of safeties on there. And again, it's just for teaching people how to shoot. Again, if you have kids, I just think it's a very good option for that. So should you own a 22? I think yes. Now there's a certain time and place. I would say if you're trying to train for real world scenarios, I do think 9mm or whatever caliber you might be carrying is going to be more effective, right? Like if you're a police officer, military, whatnot, they're not going to have you training on 22s for the most part because it's not practical for that. But if you're trying to do it cost effective in the civilian world and not blow all of your bigger calibers, I think it's a good way. When I first got my 22s, what I would do was I would shoot about 50 to 100 rounds before I would even work up to my 9mm, because I wasn't showing up at the range with like 200 rounds of 9mm. I would show up with a box or two because ammo obviously gets expensive. So if you make every range trip hundreds of dollars, it makes it hard to train consistently. But if you come out with even a box of 22 and then a couple boxes of 9 or whatever caliber you might shooting, you're gonna build up that skill, just, you know, trigger control, sight control, all that. And then when you get up to your 9mm, you'll save at least a few reps with the 22, knocking it out. So just my 2 cents. Again, I think it's a fun caliber. Take with it what you will. Rifles are a lot of fun too. I own a few rifles. I've had a few 10-22s. Those are my main shooters, also by Ruger. I do like them. I would say if you're looking for more like practical 22s for, again, real world training, if you're looking for like an AR platform, the Smith & Wesson 1522, I've got to shoot that before. That is a lot of fun. It holds 25 rounds. The magazines should fit in a standard AR mag pouch and all the controls are the same. There's also the Hammerly, which I haven't tried. There's other options like the Colt 22 that's made by Walther, the HK416 that's made by Walther, that's a 22. But yeah, there is a lot of AR options for 22. There's not as many good AK options for 22 if you're trying to do that. I did have an AK-22 that was made by, I think it was Pieta, it was like an Italian 22. It was cool, just not as practical as some of the other ones, and parts and all that availability aren't out there. But yeah, the Smith & Wesson is probably the main seller at the store that I work at. But yeah, so if you're looking for practical training, the Smith & Wesson 1522 is a good one, or that Hammerly. And then pistol-wise, I would say there's not many pistols that like simulate a standard gun. Like this is cool. It doesn't simulate any other standard size gun. But what I thought was cool with Glock is they made the Glock 44 that's chambered in 22. I know their numbers confuse everyone. The 44 is a 22, the 22 is a 40, the 40 is a 10mm. The numbers get confusing, but the Glock Model 44 chambered in 22 long rifle, it's the exact same size as a Glock 19. So what that means is if you have a holster for your Glock 19 or a light setup on the gun, you can set up the 22 the exact same way, and the magazines are the exact same size. So I thought that was very innovative on them. Maybe not innovative, but that was creative of them to make a 22 that would work in all the standard holsters for Glocks. Now I don't own one yet, but I would like to own one at some point. Most 22s only hold 10 rounds, so that might be a downside. But again, you're firing a tiny little round. It's a little bit harder to get them double stack. I know there's a lot more companies nowadays, like FN, SIG. There's a bunch now that come out with like the bigger capacity mags. I don't mind having a 10 round mag for 22s because it's not a caliber I shoot super often. And if I do have a day where I shoot 22s, it's really just a box or two worth of ammo to get kind of warmed up. So Glock is one that I would like to own at some point because it'll work with all my same mag pouches and everything, and my holster. So yeah, I just wanted to give this kind of quick video about the 22 and my thoughts on it. Again, it's a very fun round at the very least. You can do with it what you will as far as the training side, but you cannot deny that the 22 is kind of just stupid fun to shoot. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for my next video.